organization has X amount of members, and Y shows up for calls, and Z actually runs things and keeps it going, transitioning between generations of people who are transient. You've got people that stand, 5 months, 5 years.
Right. And depending on what call you're on, depends on what team you would hand pick, obviously. If you're doing something and they're down a cliff, you obviously want a rope team, not a water team. But, for the meat and potatoes of search, there's... And the thing that really stinks with that adage is, with that thought pattern, some of the people that were so talented and you would absolutely pick for your team are the ones that did the really dumb stuff, and that's why they're not around anymore.
Right.
And that's really frustrating. Again, there would be certain aspects that you would be unstoppable if you had some of that knowledge without the stupidity at your disposal.
But didn't that stupidity help mold the person you are? Wasn't that
absolutely.
Natural selection? Wasn't that our natural selection?
Potentially, yeah. I am who I am today because of what I've gone through because of those people doing stupid things. Do I have room to improve? Sure. Who doesn't? I have lots of room to improve. But yeah, you should do a show at some point where a bunch of us just sit in this room and talk horror stories. Most people wouldn't believe it, and most people would think we need psychiatric intervention based on some of the stuff we've chosen to take on over the years.
Well, and
keep choosing to take on.
And keep choosing. That's what I was going to say. It's keeping to come back.
The definition of insanity.
Yeah, it is. And, that's why I have such a healthy respect for people that choose to volunteer, because they're making a choice above. And lots of times they're the true dedicated volunteer, whatever they're doing, their passion with volunteering will transcend birth, death, marriages, jobs, medical. It'll transition throughout their life. Whereas a career can even change, but they decide on this that they've always, in these, it's almost, and I've never been into it for the fraternal type stuff. I've never been in it for that stuff. I've just been.
Yeah, some of that's a bonus, but that's not why. Yeah.
I think that when you get into it for that, you want too much of it, and you're now in it for the wrong reason.
Right. It's more of a pleasant side effect of it.
Right. And it should happen organically.
And the other thing, and I know you've mentioned it in other shows, not nearly enough credit goes to the families of us. I couldn't do what I do if my wife didn't enable it. There's plenty of things she gets stuck doing. For instance, now she's home with the 2 kids all alone. It's a little different because this was scheduled, but at any point my pager can go off and I'm out the door, and the only thing she says to me is, be careful. If you have to do something stupid, do it carefully.
Be careful.
Because she knows, if I pull up first and there's a house and there's a dog trapped in it, I'm going in after the dog. Not so much the humans, because I don't like humans, but the dog I'm going in for. She knows I will go in for somebody if they're trapped in a building. She knows I'm going to do it. Do it carefully. She can't change who I am, so she'll change how I approach it.
Yeah, but I don't know that you would do it the same way you would have done it years ago. With 2 kids or whatever.
No. Now I'm going to do a backdraft thing where you knock the valve off of a fire extinguisher and throw it through the window. Looks cooler for the cameras. If I'm going to die, I'm going out in a blaze of pictures.
But it's like you become more cautious. That's how we survive as we get older. But also you think things out differently, and you think of different options, and experience gives you safer ways to do things and accommodate for stuff. But
again, with the background that you and I have, or, any of the older folks in emergency services, I'm thinking 3 steps ahead because I know I need to. I've always thought ahead. Now I know, again, like the plan A, B, C, and D. I know A isn't going to work. Even if it did, I can't do it anymore because it involved gymnastics that I'm just not capable of these days. So, by the time it's all said and done, you're still going to have a good resolution, but you're on plan C, D, E.
One of the things about getting older, though, is that when you're younger and somebody sees you run, that's just whatever. When you're older and they see you run,
much more impressive.
It's like Godzilla. It's like, what the heck's happening? Something's bad. It's happening.
Wow, that old guy's really got some spunk.
It's like,
nope, just adrenaline.
I have a picture. I don't know if you've probably seen it, of Brian running.
Yeah. The one that used to be on your desk.
Yeah.
I always tell people these days, if you see me running, keep up because something's chasing me.
Something's chasing me. Something big is chasing me.
Yep.
And it's big, it's bulletproof, and it's mean. It's coming after me.
When I just told Brian about it at the meeting the other night. I forget what got us on the subject, but I saw a meme on Facebook. People were arguing about what the best caliber weapon is to carry when you're in the woods in case a bear charges you. And this one guy said, I've always carried a 22. I've never had a problem. They're like, what are you going to do to a bear with a 22? He said, what do you mean the bear? I'm going to shoot the guy I'm with in the knee and then I can walk away.
Exactly.
You don't have to be the fastest guy there. You just have to be faster than the slowest guy there.
Yeah.
That's really all it takes.
Yeah. The version
the rest is smoke and mirrors.
I don't have to outrun the bear. I have to outrun you.
Right.
And then the bear makes a decision, and that's a metaphor for life.
And then that can all be chalked up to what I used to call and still call the 7 Ps of life. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true. If you can anticipate it, you can plan for it, which will have a good outcome, potentially.
It's just you get so many, and I think much more in search and rescue than
stuff
anything.
You can't plan for.
Stuff you can't plan for, and then you get these armchair experts that show up, and because it's very often a longer thing, there's more time to beat things up. There's a really good book out about a missing hiker in Maine called "When They Find My Body." And
I know of it. I haven't actually read it.
Get the book. It's you will read it in one sitting. You will read it in one sitting. It's that good. And she tells us she goes missing, and you can debate whether or not she should have been hiking, but she was in her 70s, I believe. Jerry's her name. She goes down the Appalachian Trail, and there's friendships built along hiking the trail, and there's this whole culture, and she got into that. And what happens is, she would hike. Her husband would meet her along the route and restock her, and they'd stay at night in town. And then she'd go do another trip. And they did this for the longest time. But then what happened was she went missing, and he noticed right away because she wasn't at the next junction. Well, she got off the trail, and she got disoriented or whatever. And you can argue, like I said, whether or not she should have been out there at that age. But she had a plan and had everything organized. She had, I think, 3 days of food with her. She took it. At that point where she went missing, she had 1 or 2 days left, I believe. And then what happened was there were searches for her. She survived for 2 weeks. She eventually perished. But during those 2 weeks, she wrote every day in a journal.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I see the helicopter above me, this date, this time. Her phone, she would text out every day, but it didn't go out. There were signals. When she was finally found by surveyors 3 years later, and the phone was plugged in, it sent out texts to her husband of everything that happened. And she took 3 days, or what ended up being 1 or 2 days of food, and lasted for 2 weeks. And you can't ask a missing person to do more than that.
No.
You can't ask them to do more.
It's almost like a perfect critique of the search from the victim's standpoint.
That's why the book is good. That's why you'll love the book. That's why you'll love the book, because even talking about the operational part of the guy who wrote the book was talking about, it was well done. But it's this unique look into the mindset of the lost person. And that's what fascinates me. Yeah. She did everything right. 2 weeks, but they stopped the search. And she lived for a week or so after they stopped. And it's just, on this planet, in this country, there's still places where you can go and be 1,000 feet away from a trail and vanish, 500 feet away from a trail and vanish. And, and there's mistakes. She made mistakes of pride when she was dying. Like the last thing she did is she says she cut up all of her credit cards and buried them so nobody would find them with her body and wreck her husband's credit. That's how conscientious she was. But she would start signal fires. but she didn't want to burn the whole tree down or burn the forest down. And I think anybody who gets upset by this, I don't care. But I think anybody that has been doing this will say, if I'm lost, you will see the fire.
Yep.
Smoke junkers will come in.
Find me for the mountain later.
Yeah. You will see the fire. And it was pride. She would put the fires out before they got too big. And had she let one tree burn, she might be alive. But she did so many things right. And she made mistakes too. She chose the wood of a tree that was more difficult to burn when she had a nearer tree that would have burned better. She didn't know that. Her outdoor skills weren't what they should be. That being said, she lasted 2 weeks on 2 days rations.
Yeah.
You know,
that speaks volumes about her ability.
Yeah. That's some Rambo level stuff for a 70-year-old woman.
Well, and I mean, again, put in any horrible situation, we're all human. We're all going to make some mistakes. You and I that know better are still going to make mistakes. They're just going to be different mistakes than what she was making.
Right.
You know, if we weren't making mistakes, we wouldn't be in the position in the first place.
But what her story does is her story removes that thing where we say, oh, they died instantly.
Yeah.
She kept a detailed log.
Well, and a glimpse into her mindset and her thought patterns is invaluable to those of us in emergency services. It's interesting to everybody else, probably, psychologically, just studying the human condition, whatever. To us, yeah. I mean, we should circulate a memo that if you get lost in the woods, take good notes.
Take good notes. That there is a guy there's a kid that went missing in the same area 70 years earlier. He was still alive. The author of the book interviewed him and asked him what happened. And he said, second day, you get delusional. He said, within the first 4 to 5 days, you lose all concept of time.
And that makes sense.
And he knew from as a little child, he remembered what it changed. He said, your concept of time. And he said, and then your spatial concept goes. And one of the things that bothered me about this is that they said they didn't find her because it was very difficult terrain. And I always hear that very difficult terrain, very difficult terrain. Nobody in service says, oh, it's easy. It's always very difficult terrain. What bothers me is that yes, we do encounter difficult terrain. There are briars in Bucks County that will rip the pants off of you. But she got in there somehow.
Yep.
And she is not Iron Man. She got in there. So, you know, that's why you look for how she got in there.
Well, and I've always got a kick out of the difficult terrain thing as well. You know, if it was a parking lot with a tree in it, you wouldn't need us.
Right.
So, of course, it's difficult terrain. Otherwise, you wouldn't be calling a specialist in to handle it.
Right.
You'd be walking in and walking out with whoever was missing.
Right.
So, sure, it's difficult, you know.
If it were easy, we wouldn't be talking about it, you know.
Or you know, in the fire service here, it was a hot fire. Well, no kidding.
Yeah.
They don't make the cold ones. Well, a cold fusion, I guess, technically. But, you know, why are we restating the obvious? I mean, it's usually the news media that does it, but I guess they need the ratings. So
it's hot, fire sounds
it's
dangerous,
much cooler. You know, it's
hot, it's dangerous, and it's all those things. And you know,
or years ago there were game commissioners out doing something and they got shot, and the news report in the newspaper read something to the extent of, they were shot while somebody was hunting out of season. I'm like, game commissioners have their own season? Yeah. Why would you sign up for that job? But you know, again, it was just a very horribly worded headline.
The media often, I mean, I feel like they're trying to stretch it. I think that the news should be whatever length it has to be, and they fill the time with pleasant music afterwards.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like they're trying to fill it out.
Yeah.
To fill a block of time.
Absolutely.
And they're starting out with, you know, they want to lead with horror, and then shock, and then awe, and then...
And depending on what station, it's this spin on it or that spin on it, or,
right.
You know, whatever happened to non-denominational or nonpartisan media.
I can't even watch the news anymore.
I don't. I haven't in years. At best, I'll pick up a newspaper because then I can interpret it how I see fit. But I don't even do that most of the time.
Well, I've recently rediscovered the newspaper, and I enjoy reading it because it makes you sit down and it rests your mind. It's like a massage for your